I'm starting to sound even more cringy every time I try to do this intro. Hello everybody, my name is Oscar Reviews, and as of recording this, 2 weeks have passed since the release of the newest Ninja Turtles TV show, Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Not to be confused with Tales of the TMNT, a small collection of massive episodes released during the end of the 2012 Ninja Turtles show. I am too obsessed with this franchise. Anyway, after rewatching the show a couple dozen times, I realized that I have quite a lot to say on this show, both good and bad. And what better way to give myself an excuse to talk about this show and justify the name of my YouTube channel by making a review on it. And so that people on Discord can stop pestering me about when my next review is gonna come out. You're not funny, Matt! I'm just kidding, you are very funny, I love you. Anyhoozles, we're gonna start off with the stuff I really loved, and move our way down to the stuff I fucking despise. Let's get into it. Warning! Warning! This video contains massive spoilers for Tales of the TMNT. Go watch it immediately! By far, my favorite thing about this interpretation of the Ninja Turtles has got to be its visuals. Although the fight scenes are incredibly well choreographed and engaging, the sketchy art style and popping colors help to make all of the visual effects very pretty to look at. And one fun thing I'd like to note about the character designs, none of them look ugly. Which may sound like a weird thing to praise on the surface, but you gotta remember, in the original Mutant Mayhem movie, everyone looked ugly. Everyone and everything in the movie always had this sort of broken, asymmetrical look to it. And in the film, this was all done deliberately. Both the humans and mutants were supposed to look misshapen and horrifying because that's how they saw each other. But now, in Tales of the TMNT, everyone is on the same page. So now, all of the characters, both human and mutant, are incredibly visually pleasing to look at. Even all of the new mutants they introduced in this show are supposed to look more like sympathetic characters rather than dumb, mindless monsters for the turtles to punch. Except for the anemones. Those guys freak me out a lot.
Did you guys learn to talk from TV commercials or something?
Buy one, get one free!
Oh, dang, you did!
My only big problem with the animation is that the lip syncing can look incredibly choppy, but that's more of a nitpick than anything else. So, yeah, all the animation and character designs are incredibly phenomenal, but what about the story and characters?
Yeah. You know what?
What makes Tales of the TMNT stand out among past iterations of the Ninja Turtles is that, instead of having one big overarching story, the first season is split into two 6-episode-long storylines. The first one of them focusing on this universe's interpretation of the character Bishop, and the second one focusing on a new group of mutant baddies known as the East River Three and their plan to steal a giant pearl from the museum. Again, starting off with the positives, I love that most of the characters got their original voice actors back. Of course, I knew that going into the show that the Turtles would be keeping their original voice actors no matter what, but it was a very pleasant surprise to hear the voices of Natasha Demetriou and Rose Byrne return as Wingnut and Leatherhead respectively. Although they couldn't get Post Malone back to record new voice lines for Ray Fillet, so they just decided to reuse voice lines from the movie and it gets really annoying after a while. Although they did recast Genghis Frog, which is a little weird.
I'm gonna eat the cat.
What is wrong with you, frog?
And as for the characters, I'd say they're all written fairly well. Aside from one of them, whom we will talk about later. All of the Turtles each get 2 episodes to help flesh out their characters, which is really nice. Leonardo's crush on April is a lot less in your face than it was in the movie, which I personally think is a good thing. All of the mutant characters from the movie, aside from Ray Fillet, are given a lot more time to flesh out their personalities. A lot like the movie, the show often relies on pop culture references for its humor, but unlike something like Trolls or Shark Tale, which just throw in a pop culture reference for the sake of making a pop culture reference, Tales of the TMNT actually uses these pop culture references as a reason to help these characters bond and grow closer together. The show also gets to play around with a lot of new interpretations of older Ninja Turtles characters like Bishop or Metalhead or Pigeon Pete. Dear God, I love Pigeon Pete! Did you guys know he was voiced by Fish Legs?
if you're planning on getting eaten, I'd definitely go with the girl goal.
Moving on to the negatives, however, I really hate Splinter's new voice. For the entire first half of the season, Splinter only speaks vermin, quote-unquote, which ultimately just results in him making rat noises. But in the second half of the season, where Splinter is more prevalent, they have Raphael's voice actor do a Batman impression for him, and it doesn't really sound good at all. I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm watching a poorly dubbed fanfiction. My only big issue with the story is that the plotline with Bishop is, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it here, absolute dog shit. Most of the action during this plotline focuses only on the turtles fighting a bunch of boring-looking robots. And during the final episode of the story arc, it suddenly turns into a robot apocalypse storyline. Like we don't have enough of those? But my absolute least favorite aspect of this season has got to be the show's interpretation of the character Bishop. Let's get this over with.
They just seem like, regular kids.
Regular kids are not green, Rod.
Fly, fly.
Okay, now where do I begin with this? This character is Josefina Bishop, a genius robotics inventor whose work was destroyed by Super Duper Fly during the events of the movie. After mistaking the turtles for being the ones who destroyed her life's work, she vowed to eliminate all of mutant kind for the sake of humanity. And as you can probably tell by the amount of shade I've been throwing at this character throughout the review, I have quite a lot of opinions on this. Now let's get my biggest issue out of the way first. This character is a goddamn moron. Despite being a self-proclaimed genius robotics inventor, and I use the term loosely, she never accounts for the possibility that her AI could possibly turn against her, despite the fact that it's happened before.
My dad said the FBI's got a file on you because your AI went berserk and they called you a potential threat.
That was one time in college.
She also fails to account for the fact that humans have mutations too, which is what eventually leads to her robots deciding that all life should be destroyed because all life mutates eventually. And not only are her methods stupid, her motives are too! The main reason why she wants to destroy all mutants is because Super Duper Fly destroyed a robot that was sentimental to her sister or something, who may or may not be dead. It's kinda left up in the air. Now, the reason why this doesn't work from a writing standpoint is that it makes Bishop as a character come across as really petty. Now, if that's what they were going for with her character, then that would be one thing. But no, they instead use this as a reason for why us, the audience, should sympathize with Bishop. A character whom, in one episode, was willing to murder multiple innocent men, women, and children just for the sake of killing one mutant. Oh, it's a small price to pay for the benefit of the entire species. Get the fuck out of here with your stupid Thanos-esque logic! And you want to know what I really despise about this character? During the final scene of the story arc, she decides to turn herself into the government because, yeah, her work almost destroyed all of humanity. It was the government who were all like, "Yes, Bishop, you were correct with this whole genociding mutants idea. You had the right idea with your robots." Bitch, no the fuck she didn't! Bishop's robots almost destroyed all humans, wait no, not just all humans, all life on the planet, and you decide to reward her for it? Do you not have a brain in that stupid sexy head of yours? And okay, this last bit is more or less a nitpick, but just the way she talks about mutants comes across as, well, for lack of a better term, kinda racist.
Messy mutagens and proteins causing unpredictable spikes in DNA, and now suddenly humanity must suffer the destruction wreaked by 50-foot-tall monsters? Talking rhinos, turtle people who want a public education.
So yeah, Mutant Mayhem Bishop may just be the worst villain that this franchise has ever seen, but what about the other villains in this show? Oh, they're really, really good actually, thanks for asking. How the fuck did you get into my house? Starting off with the lesser of the two evils, we have the Purple Dragons. And this is the first time since 2003 that the dragons actually feel like a legitimate threat. I mean, seriously, these guys were willing to cut up Raphael with a chainsaw. And I want Angel to step on me. And then we have the East River 3, and they are by far the best villains the show has to offer so far. The broad strokes of the East River 3 story arc is that they were once regular animals that lived in the East River until Superfly's machine from the movie turned them all into mutants. And after being rejected and outcast by their friends and family, they decide to steal the Jersey Bite, a giant pearl that's on loan to the Natural History Museum.
On loan? They stole it!
Lee and Sally already make for threatening and entertaining antagonists by themselves, but it really is Goldfin that makes me consider all three of these guys to be the best villains in the show. At the beginning of their story, they had a pretty noble goal of stealing back the Jersey Bite so that they can be accepted back into their little underwater community. But in their attempts to try to find a criminal to help them steal the pearl, Bad Bernie offered Goldfin the opportunity to live like a king. Goldfin steals the pearl for Bad Bernie. Bad Bernie gives Goldfin the opportunity to live like a god among men. Or fish. And not only does this scene help Bad Bernie feel like an actually competent villain, but it also plants the seed in Goldfin's head that maybe they should keep the pearl for themselves. What have those worthless bottom feeders ever done for him and his friends anyway? And all of these factors culminate in the final episode of the season where Goldfin betrays Lee and Sally to take the pearl for himself. And he flat out said to their faces, albeit unintentionally, that he could just buy some new friends, as if they meant nothing to him. All because of his undying greed and lust for power. Man, after talking about this show for so long, it makes me want to go back and rewatch it again. And that would make it my, 30th rewatch? I've lost count at this point. But before I go and do that, I should probably write a conclusion to this video. So...
Good tea. And now, the conclusion.
Tales of the TMNT may not be on the same level as 2012 or Rise, but I'd still consider it a worthy addition to the Ninja Turtles mythos. I mean, sure, it may have the worst interpretation of Bishop I've ever seen, and I may not be a fan of all the decisions they made with all the pre-existing Mutant Mayhem characters, but all of those things are thoroughly eclipsed by everything the show managed to do right. The art and animation are jaw-dropping, Goldfin is an amazing villain, the show helps flesh out each of the Turtles' characters individually, which is something I was desperately craving for after the movie. Although if there was one thing I wish the show took advantage of, it was the fact that this is the first time the Turtles are officially in high school. There are so many potentially cool story ideas you could tell with a setting like that, and they just didn't do it. I don't know, maybe they're saving all of those ideas for a season 2, or when the second movie eventually comes out. I also wish that the show would explore more avenues of Scumbug's character, because if you really think about it, she's essentially like the Turtles' stepmother. This is the first time that the Turtles have ever actually had a legitimate mother figure in their lives. Unless you count Big Mama from Rise of the TMNT.
Which, face it, no one does.
I was also baffled by the lack of Bebop and Rocksteady in this show. The two are mentioned twice, yet they never appear. The two are fan-favorite staples of the franchise, and yet they're just inexplicably missing. Maybe it had something to do with John Cena and Seth Rogen's schedules not aligning with the production of the show. If this show ever gets a season 2, we absolutely need to see more of them. Also, if I had a nickel for every time Donnie Trejo voiced a Ninja Turtles villain, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Let's see, what else did I forget to mention? Wingnut is my spirit animal, Lee is absolute waifu material, Pigeon Pete is the goat, and I think that's about it. I mean, I guess I could touch on the debate on whether or not it's even canon, but that is not a debate I want to have today. Overall, Tales of the TMNT is a fantastic show with fantastic animation, fantastic characters, and a horrible villain and inconsistent storytelling. Even though the show is not perfect, I still highly recommend any hardcore Ninja Turtles fan go watch this show on Paramount Plus immediately. And if I had to give this show a rating, I think a 7 out of 10 would probably be more than fair. My name is Oscar Reviews, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all on the Halloween times, where, I don't know, maybe I'll do a review of that one new Digital Circus episode coming out next month. Good night, Tri-State New York City. Ah!
head. What happened?